The message hit every corner of the known galaxy in a matter of hours. System A-57 seized by unknown human force. Galactic Council in emergency session. Military mobilizing. Commander Grant Mercer stood alone in the dim command room of the Odyssey's Wrath, reading the communique over and over. His scarred knuckles gripped the edge of the console. They did it, he thought. They really did it. 12 years ago, Grant had watched Earth crumble. The Council, a bloated cabal of alien species, had imposed embargoes, sanctions, and finally a military blockade after Earth refused to disarm. The human government had fractured, torn apart by infighting and council puppets. Millions died in riots and bombardments. Billions more faced starvation on a dying planet. Grant had been one of the lucky ones. He'd escaped with a rogue human fleet led by Admiral Kane, a man so ruthless and brilliant that even the Council's best feared him. They'd disappeared into the galactic frontier, written off as a band of exiles. No one expected them to survive. Fewer still believed they could thrive. But they had. On the edges of known space, beyond the hyperlane networks, they'd found an abandoned star system rich with resources. Isolated, shielded by gravitational anomalies, it had been the perfect place to build. And build they did. Kane had enforced brutal order, no dissent, no weakness. Every colonist worked. Every child was trained to fight. Every scrap of technology was reverse-engineered and weaponized. What emerged over the next decade wasn't a colony. It was a war machine. Now they had moved. Seizing System A-57 wasn't just bold. It was insane. The system was a key hyperlane hub, controlling trade routes through a quarter of the Orion arm. The Council had never considered it vulnerable. Their arrogance had left it lightly defended. That mistake had cost them dearly. Grant flicked through the intercepted reports. Shredded Council patrols, disabled dreadnoughts, orbital stations commandeered. The human fleet had struck like a hammer, coordinated and merciless. No mercy, no prisoners. The few alien survivors spoke of cold-eyed human marines storming ships and platforms with lethal precision. Now, the Council was in chaos. Half the member species wanted immediate retaliation. The other half feared provoking a full-scale war with humans they no longer understood or controlled. Grant smiled grimly. That was Kane's real victory. Fear. The galaxy was afraid of humans again. A chime sounded behind him. Lieutenant Harris, young, sharp, loyal to the core, entered. "Sir, orders from High Command," Harris said, handing over a secure datapad. Grant scanned it. Mobilization. His fleet, 2 heavy cruisers and 6 destroyers, was to reinforce A-57 immediately. No retreat, no negotiations. Hold the system at all costs. He looked at Harris. "You ready to go back into the fire, Lieutenant?" "Yes, sir. About damn time," Harris replied, eyes burning with fierce pride. Grant nodded. "Get the crew prepped. We jump in 2 hours." As Harris snapped a salute and left, Grant allowed himself a brief moment to think. 12 years ago, humans had been scattered and broken. Today, they held one of the galaxy's most strategic systems. But he knew what was coming. The Council wouldn't back down. Fleets would gather. Diplomats would posture. Spies would swarm. The real war was about to begin. And there would be no mercy this time. Grant glanced at the cold stars beyond the viewport. Let them come, he thought. We're ready. The Odyssey's Wrath emerged from hyperspace with a thunderous ripple across the void. The stars of System A-57 glared back through the reinforced viewport, cold and distant. Before them hung the newly conquered system, 3 planets, a gas giant, 6 orbital platforms now under human control, and a network of defense satellites blinking to life. Commander Grant Mercer stood rigid on the bridge, eyes locked on the tactical display. A chill ran through him, despite the warmth of the ship's core systems humming around him. They weren't arriving into a secured, peaceful system. No, the air still stank of fresh battle. Wreckage from Council vessels drifted in massive clouds, some still venting atmosphere and frozen corpses. Broken hulls spun slowly, mute testimony to the sudden violence the humans had unleashed days earlier. No survivors. No surrenders. Just the way Kane wanted it, Grant thought grimly. A comms officer turned in his seat. "Sir, receiving secure ping from Iron Fang Station, coded as friendly." "Patch it through," Grant ordered. Admiral Kane's voice came through, deep and gravel-edged from years of war. "Grant, welcome back to Hell. I trust your ships are ready to fight." "We are, sir. All weapons charged. Troops prepped for zero-G boarding and planetary drops." "Good. We'll need them. Council probes have already breached the outer system. Scouts report battle groups assembling in nearby sectors." Kane's voice was calm, controlled. But beneath the words lay that familiar steel, the kind forged from a man who'd watched his home burn. Grant clenched his fists behind his back. "What's the plan?" "Hold the system at all costs," Kane said flatly. "We can't afford to lose this foothold. Every hour we hold buys us legitimacy, and time to show the galaxy we won't crawl back into the shadows." He could hear voices in the background on Kane's end, tactical officers, engineers barking orders, the chaos of a military gearing for total war. Then Kane spoke again, lower. "And Grant, if they take this system, they'll slaughter every human left here, you know that." Grant's jaw tightened. "I won't let that happen." "Good." A pause. "Report to Iron Fang once your fleet's in position." The channel closed. Grant exhaled, cold sweat beading on his brow. He turned to Harris. "Deploy defensive pattern Theta. Get destroyers screening the outer ring. Position Wrath to cover Iron Fang's flank." "Aye, sir." The crew moved with brutal efficiency. No hesitation, no bureaucracy. Every man and woman on this ship had bled to get here. Refugees turned soldiers. No one believed the Council would negotiate now. They knew what was coming. Grant moved to the forward viewport, arms crossed. A 57's primary planet, a rocky world named Bastion by the humans, hung below, its surface already scarred by the brief ground campaign that had secured the planetary installations. It wasn't a paradise. It wasn't even habitable without domes and life support systems. But it was theirs. For now, Grant thought. Hours passed as the fleet took formation. The Council's first probing attacks came swiftly. Small frigate groups darting into the system, testing the humans' readiness. They were met with missile barrages and kinetic railgun fire. None survived. Grant watched the engagements on the display, expression cold. This was just the beginning. A priority alert chimed. "Sir," Harris called out. "Long-range sensors picking up a large Council fleet entering the hyperlane corridor. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. 17 capital ships. Dozens of escorts." The bridge went quiet. Grant processed the numbers. This wasn't a probe anymore. It was a hammer. He opened a channel to Kane. "Admiral, main Council fleet inbound. ETA 6 hours. "Understood," Kane replied, calm as ever. "We hold. Prepare for full engagement." Grant closed the channel and turned to his crew. "You heard him. We fight. Bring up every drone we've got. Ready the flak cannons. I want boarding teams on standby." Harris glanced at him, voice low. "Sir, do you think we can hold against that many?" Grant stared at the tactical map. A thin human line against a sea of incoming red markers. The odds were brutal, but surrender wasn't an option. "They'll have to pry this system from our cold, dead hands," he said, and they'll pay for every damn meter. The hours crawled by as the fleet braced for battle. Men and women checked weapons, ran final diagnostics. The Wrath's hangars buzzed with activity, fighters being armed, dropships prepped for emergency boarding. In the barracks, Grant walked among the Marines. Hardened faces looked up at him. Some veterans of Earth's fall, others born in exile, raised with no home but this cold void. He stopped by a squad loading kinetic rifles. You know what's coming. Sergeant Blake, an old soldier with one cybernetic eye, grinned without humor. Council bastards finally think we're worth fighting. About damn time. The Marines laughed darkly. Grant's voice cut through. No prisoners, no retreats. You fight like hell to hold every station, every deck. They'll show no mercy, and neither will we. The squad slammed mags into their rifles and saluted. There was no false hope in their eyes, only grim determination. Back on the bridge, the countdown neared 0. Harris called out, voice tense. Council fleet emerging. Multiple signatures. They're here. The view screen filled with the shimmering light of hyperspace ruptures. One by one, massive alien ships appeared. Sleek Council dreadnoughts, spiked cruisers, swarms of smaller corvettes. The comms lit up with encrypted chatter from Iron Fang. Engage on my mark, Kane's voice came through. Grant felt the bridge's tension thicken. His heart pounded, but his face remained stone. They think we'll break, he thought. Let's show them how wrong they are. Kane's order cut through. Mark. The void erupted in fire. Missiles streaked from human platforms. Railguns thundered. Automated drones swarmed forward. Council ships fired back, energy beams slicing through space. Grant barked orders. Target those lead cruisers. Flank with Destroyer Group 2. Hold formation. Don't let them divide us. The Wrath shuddered under impact, shields flaring as alien weaponry struck. But the ship held. Out the viewport, the battle raged, a brutal melee of steel and plasma. Council ships were fast and well-armed, but human crews fought like demons. They had nowhere to run. No safe fallback. Every fighter, every Marine knew the truth. This was their line in the sand, and they would die before giving it up. Hours blurred into blood-soaked chaos. Council forces pressed hard, waves of cruisers trying to punch through to Iron Fang. Several human destroyers were lost, shattered hulls drifting into the abyss. But they gave better than they got. Grant watched grimly as a Council dreadnought broke formation, venting atmosphere from a railgun breach. Marines reported successful boarding of 2 enemy frigates, slaughtering crews, turning their own ships against the enemy. Still, the Council kept coming. A new alert blared. Harris shouted, "Sir, Council reinforcements entering system. 30 more signatures inbound." Grant's gut twisted. It was a tidal wave. He opened a desperate channel to Kane. "Admiral, more enemy ships incoming. We're stretched thin." Kane's voice came back, still cold steel. "We hold. No retreat. If they break us here, they'll hunt us to extinction." The channel closed. Kane wasn't bluffing. Grant stood tall, eyes blazing. He looked around the bridge, faces drawn, sweat-soaked but fierce. "You heard the man," Grant said, voice sharp. "We stand. Load every missile. Bring the reactors to maximum. If they want this system, they'll choke on it." Harris grinned through the tension. "Damn right, sir." As the next wave of Council ships barreled in, the battle entered a new level of brutality. Human ships burned. Alien hulls broke apart. The void between stars became a graveyard. Yet somehow, against all reason, the human line held. Bloodied, battered, but unbroken. And through it all, one truth burned in Grant's mind. We've already won more than they ever thought we could. We are human, and we are not done yet. Smoke choked the bridge of Odyssey's wrath. Sparks rained from exposed conduits. The deck vibrated under sustained impacts. Grant gripped the railing, knuckles white, staring at the tactical display. Red icons swarmed like hornets. The second wave had hit harder than anyone expected. 2 more human destroyers were gone. The defensive satellites were running low on munitions, and Iron Fang itself was taking fire. Harris wiped blood from a gash above his brow. "Sir, Wrath's starboard shields are at 23%. We've got hull breaches on decks 5 through 7. Grant's voice cut through the noise. "Seal the breaches. Divert power to the forward batteries. Target that Council flagship. We take it down, the others will hesitate." He didn't say what they all knew. This was turning into a slaughter. The Council had committed a full battle group now. It wasn't about reclaiming A-57 anymore. It was about sending a message, wipe the humans out, make them an example. And yet, they were still here. Grant's comm crackled. "Wrath, this is Iron Fang. Kane here. Priority transmission." "Patch him through," Grant ordered. Kane's face appeared on the cracked secondary screen. Blood stained his uniform collar. His eyes were wild with battle fury. "Grant, we've got Council landing craft heading for Bastion's surface. They're trying to take our ground facilities, airfields, comms relays, the main fusion plant." Grant's gut twisted. If they lost the surface, they lost the system, and any chance of holding their fleet together. Kane continued. "I need you to deploy assault teams. You're the closest ship with ready Marines. Get down there and hold those positions, or we're done." Grant nodded sharply. "Understood. I'll lead the teams myself." Kane's lips curled into a grim smile. "Knew you would." The channel cut. Grant turned to Harris. "You have the bridge. Keep the ship alive. If I'm not back in 6 hours..." Harris cut him off. "You'll be back, sir." Grant clasped the younger man's shoulder. "Hold the line." 10 minutes later, Grant stood in the Wrath's launch bay, armored up in a black exosuit, pulse rifle slung across his chest. Around him, 2 full platoons of Marines prepped for drop, grim, battle-scarred men who'd followed him through exile and hell. Sergeant Blake approached, visor down. "Council's already got boots on the ground, sir. We're going in hot." Grant's voice was iron. "We hit hard, hold the fusion plant. If that goes down, we lose air and power for half the colony. No mercy, no retreat." The bay doors opened. Dropships roared to life, slamming through the void toward Bastion's surface. Grant strapped in. As the ship rocked through atmospheric entry, he felt that old, cold focus settle in his chest, the clarity that came only when death was close. Good, he thought. Let them come. The drop zone was hell. As Grant's dropship screamed in low, plasma fire ripped past them. Council craft strafed the landing pads. Human ground crews were already engaged in savage gunfights among the burning wreckage of fuel tanks and shattered transports. 2 minutes, the pilot shouted. Grant stood, voice booming through the comms. "Weapons ready! We hit the ground running! Clear the LZ! Secure the plant!" The Marines roared back, rifles primed. Then the ship touched down with a bone-jarring slam. The ramp dropped, and the battle hit them like a hammer. Grant led the charge, pulse rifle barking. Council shock troops, towering insectoid forms clad in chitin armor, swarmed through the smoke. But the Marines didn't hesitate. Kinetic rounds punched through alien bodies. Grenades ripped into their ranks. Grant advanced through the chaos, a grim force of nature, barking orders as he dropped one alien after another. Sergeant Blake covered his flank. "They've got heavy weapons near the main conduit." Grant spotted the position. A council gun nest pinning down several human squads. Without thinking, he sprinted forward, slid behind a wrecked loader, and lobbed a frag grenade. Boom. The gun nest vanished in a cloud of fire and chitin shards. "Move up," Grant ordered. The humans surged forward, driving the aliens back step by bloody step. By the time they reached the fusion plant's main entrance, the ground was slick with gore, human and alien alike. Blake panted beside him. "Sir, reports say Council's bringing in reinforcements. We'll be overrun in minutes." Grant keyed his comm. "Wrath, this is Mercer. We've secured the plant, but we need air support now." Harris's voice came back, strained. "Sir, Wrath's pinned by 2 Council cruisers. We're buying you time, but you're on your own down there." Grant's jaw tightened. Of course they were. He turned to his men. "We hold this position. You see a Council soldier? You kill them. No surrender, no fallback." The Marines locked down the perimeter, setting up auto turrets, patching wounds, checking ammo. Through the smoke, Grant saw more Council dropships descending. Dozens of them. Blake grinned savagely. "Guess they really want this place." Grant raised his rifle. "Then let's make them bleed for it." The next assault hit like a tidal wave. Council troops poured toward the plant, shock infantry backed by armored walkers. Plasma blasts turned the air to fire. The ground shook with impacts. Grant fought from the front, rifle bucking in his hands, voice hoarse from shouted orders. His suit's servos strained with each movement, but he kept moving, kept killing. Blake went down once, plasma burned to the shoulder, but dragged himself back up, firing one-handed. Around them, Marines fell. Positions were overrun, reclaimed, overrun again. The ground outside the plant became a charnel pit. Still, the line held. Grant's comm crackled again, Kane's voice ragged but fierce. "Grant, you're buying us the time we need. Council fleet's starting to pull back. They're bleeding too hard." Grant ducked behind a barricade, heart hammering. "Good, because we're about out of ammo and men." Kane laughed, a harsh sound. "Hold a little longer. Reinforcements inbound." Then the comm went dead again, as the network was hit by jamming. Grant reloaded, grit in his voice. "You heard him! We hold this ground or we die here!" The Marines roared back. Minutes became hours. The fighting blurred into a haze of blood and smoke. Grant's armor was scorched, cracked. His rifle was down to its last magazine. He fought now with sidearm and blade, close and brutal. Beside him, Blake leaned against a barricade, bleeding heavily but still alive. "Sir," the sergeant rasped, "even if we hold, how many of us will be left?" Grant looked out over the battlefield. Burning dropships, dead Marines, shattered aliens, then up at the dark sky, where flashes of battle still raged in orbit. "Doesn't matter," he said quietly. "What matters is that the galaxy sees this, that they know humans will never kneel again." Blake managed a bloody grin. Hell of a message. Then, a distant roar. Human gunships screamed in, blazing with railgun fire. Reinforcements. Council forces scattered, caught in the open. Grant surged to his feet. "Now! Push them back!" The Marines rallied, charging out of the barricades. The enemy broke under the counterattack, driven back toward their crippled landing craft. Within minutes, the fusion plant perimeter was secure again. The surviving humans slumped against walls, gasping, bleeding, but alive. Grant leaned on his rifle, exhausted but unbowed. Above, the Council fleet was retreating, battered and bloodied. They had failed to take A-57. For now. As the smoke cleared, Kane's voice came through once more. "Grant, the galaxy is watching. Today they saw humans fight harder than they ever believed possible." Grant looked at his shattered platoon, at the blackened battlefield. "They'll see more," he said grimly. "This is only the beginning." And deep in his heart, beneath the exhaustion and pain, one truth burned bright. Humanity was done running. Now, they were ready to conquer. The War Council was held in Iron Fang's lower command chamber, a stark room of alloy walls, dim lighting, and scorched holoscreens patched from the battle. No banners, no flags, just war-worn men and data flickering in the dark. Commander Grant Mercer stood at the table, battered exosuit still streaked with ash and alien blood. Across from him, Admiral Kane leaned on the console, eyes sunken from exhaustion but sharp with purpose. Around them were senior fleet captains and ground commanders, hard men, faces lined by years of survival. No politicians, no diplomats. The humans here had no illusions left about peace. Kane's voice was hoarse. Council fleet's retreating beyond system perimeter. They've lost 3 capital ships and a dozen escorts. Surface forces routed. For now, a 57 is ours. A low murmur ran through the room, equal parts grim satisfaction and wary caution. Captain Rayner, commander of Vengeance, spoke first. They'll be back. Bigger next time. The Council won't accept this, not from us. Grant nodded. They're already mobilizing sector fleets. I've intercepted chatter. Council member states are demanding total retaliation. They can't let a human colony seize a system like this without losing face. Kane punched a command into the console. The holotable displayed the surrounding sectors, dozens of red fleet markers blinking ominously around a 57. We've bloodied them, Kane said, voice cold. But we've also forced them to take us seriously. They won't stop now, not until they burn this place to the ground. Another captain, Vosik, a former mercenary turned fleet officer, spat on the floor. Let them come. We made them bleed once. We'll do it again. Grant's gaze stayed hard. We can't win this on brute force alone. Our ships are damaged. Munitions are low. Half our orbital platforms are offline. If they come in massed force, we can't hold. The room went quiet. No one wanted to say it, but they all knew the truth. Kane straightened. Which is why we moved to Phase 2. He brought up a second display, coded transmission logs. The galaxy is watching, Kane continued. News of our victory is spreading. Independent traders, fringe colonies, even rogue council elements, all hearing one thing. Humans seized a council system and held it. That changes everything. Grant's mind was already moving. Recruitment. Kane nodded. Exactly. We broadcast our message. No more begging for scraps. No more shame. Any human colony, rogue fleet, or exile that wants to fight, they come here. They join us. We build something stronger than the Council ever feared. It was bold. Dangerous. But the only path forward. Captain Rayner frowned. And what about internal dissent? We start pulling in deserters, criminals. We could tear ourselves apart from the inside. Grant answered before Kane could. His voice was flat. Then we enforce discipline, ruthlessly. Any who can't fight with us, they're out. Or dead. No one argued. They knew Grant meant it. Kane looked around the table. There's no turning back. From this point on, we are at war with the entire Council. Every man and woman here must understand that. He looked to Grant. You'll oversee planetary defenses, train new recruits, harden Bastion's surface. I want this rock to bleed any enemy that sets foot on it. Grant inclined his head. I'll make it happen. Kane's eyes burned. Good. Because we are not going to die in exile. We are going to build an empire. The next days passed in a blur of brutal preparation. Grant barely slept. When he wasn't overseeing the fusion plant's repairs, he was inspecting surface defenses or drilling new recruits, a ragged mix of veterans, ex-mercs, and desperate human exiles drawn by word of their victory. Some were good. Most weren't ready. Grant trained them anyway, mercilessly. Council soldiers won't care where you came from, he barked during one drill. They'll gut you all the same. You want to live? Fight like you've got nothing to lose because you don't. The recruits responded. Some breaking under the pressure, others hardening, eyes sharpening with each brutal session. Meanwhile, orbital crews worked around the clock to rebuild the platforms and refit damaged ships. Supply shortages dogged every effort. Ammunition was rationed. Medical supplies were critically low. But morale was high. Dangerously so. Victory had tasted sweet, and too many thought it could last. Grant knew better. Late one cycle, Harris found him alone in a surface bunker, poring over intercepted council signals. "Sir," Harris said quietly, "word spreading fast. Outlying human colonies are talking about pledging support. Some independent traders, too." Grant looked up, tired eyes meeting his. "And the council?" Harris hesitated. "Mobilizing, fast. Multiple fleets converging on nearby sectors. Some member states pushing for a full blockade." Grant exhaled. "No surprise. We humiliated them. Now they'll make an example of us." Harris shifted. "Permission to speak freely, sir?" Grant nodded. "Some of the new recruits. They're overconfident. Think we can fight the whole galaxy. Think we're invincible." Grant's jaw tightened. "Then we remind them, no one is invincible." He stood, rolling the stiffness from his shoulders. "We survived because we fought smart, because we had nothing left to lose. If we start believing we're gods, we're already dead." Harris nodded. "Understood." That night, Grant met again with Kane in Iron Fang's war room. The mood was darker now. Word had come of new council alliances forming. Mercenary groups, bounty hunters, even privateers were being hired to hunt human ships. "This isn't just a war anymore," Kane said grimly. "It's a campaign of extermination." Grant's voice was steel. "Then we fight it like one. No quarter, no illusions. We break them. Or we die." Kane leaned forward. "And if we win, we carve out something real. A human power that stands on its own terms. No more bowing to alien councils." He looked Grant dead in the eye. "You ready for that? To lead not just soldiers, but a nation of warriors?" Grant didn't hesitate. "I didn't survive exile to fade into history. I'm ready." Kane's thin smile held no humor. "Good, because from here on, there's no going back." And across the stars, unseen by the battered warriors of a 57, the galaxy trembled. Council members bickered, argued, panicked. Some demanded all-out war. Others feared a growing human insurgency could ignite wider rebellion. News channels, pirate broadcasts, underground networks, all pulsed with the same message. A hidden human colony seized an entire star system, and they're not done yet. It began with a whisper, a seemingly minor power surge in one of Bastion's upper comm towers. "Routine," the text said. The battered infrastructure had been patched together after the last orbital bombardment. Glitches were expected. Grant didn't believe in coincidences. He was in the field command center when the second surge hit. Not in the comm towers this time, but in the primary fusion conduit under Sector 3. Alarms screamed through the bunker. Half the surface grid flickered, leaving key defense batteries offline. "Sabotage," Grant said flatly. Across the table, Harris stiffened. "You're sure, sir?" Grant's gaze was cold. Too precise, too well-timed. And the timing was no accident. Just hours before, long-range scans had picked up fresh council scout ships moving into the outer rim of A-57. They were probing, testing the humans' readiness again. The enemy didn't know about the power surges yet, but they would. And when they did, they'd strike. Later that night, Grant stood with Kane in a secure conference room deep within Iron Fang's central block, far below the eyes and ears of any would-be traitors. The Admiral looked as grim as Grant had ever seen him. "We found the breach," Kane said, sliding a data pad across the table. "Encrypted access codes, Council military grade. Someone inside our ranks let them in." Grant scanned the files. The codes weren't just advanced. They were recent. That meant the traitor was someone with access to command-level systems. "How deep?" Grant asked. Kane's expression darkened. "Too deep. They knew exactly which systems to target. Comms, power, surveillance blind spots. He looked Grant straight in the eye. This isn't just sabotage. It's an assassination attempt. On me, and maybe on you. Grant's pulse spiked, though his face stayed stone. He'd known this was coming. It was inevitable. Their victory in A-57 had made humanity a threat, not just militarily, but politically. If the Council couldn't crush them from without, they'd tear them apart from within. Kane leaned forward. I want you to find this bastard. Quietly, before they bring the whole damn house down around us. Grant's voice was steel. Consider it done. The hunt began that same night. Grant worked with a hand-picked team, veterans he trusted with his life. No green recruits, no politicians. Men who'd bled for this cause. They combed the data, tracked access logs, cross-checked crew manifests. Piece by piece, the picture sharpened. The leak had started 3 weeks earlier, just after the Council's first failed counterattack. Too many new faces had flooded in since then. Mercs, fringe smugglers, even ex-Council deserters. Not all of them loyal. 2 days into the investigation, Harris came to Grant with a hard look. Sir, we've got something. He led Grant to a secure data room. On the main screen blinked the face of a mid-level logistics officer, Nathan Cole, former cargo pilot, joined up 2 weeks after the battle, clean record on paper. But the logs told a different story. He had admin access to the fusion plant systems, Harris explained. He pulled schematics on the comm towers, too, flagged it as routine maintenance. Grant's jaw tightened. Where is he now? Surface Sector 4, running supply drops. Grant grabbed his sidearm. Prep a strike team. They hit Cole's outpost just past midnight. 6 men, silent and fast. No alarms, no warning. Cole was cornered in the comm room, half drunk and jittery. His eyes went wide when he saw Grant enter. Commander, I didn't... Grant leveled his pistol at the man's chest. Save it. He nodded to Blake, who slammed Cole against the wall and began a brutal search. Within minutes, they found it. A microtransmitter, council make, hidden beneath a false panel. Grant's voice was low and cold. How much did they pay you, Cole? Cole trembled. It wasn't about money. Grant backhanded him hard. Blood splattered the wall. No speeches, Grant said. You sold out your own kind. That's all I need to know. Cole started to beg. Grant cut him off with a sharp gesture. Take him to the pits, he ordered Blake. Public execution. No closed trials. The others need to see what happens to traitors. Blake grinned grimly. With pleasure, sir. The next day, Cole was dragged into Bastion's central square, stripped, bruised, and pale with fear. Hundreds of soldiers and civilians gathered as word spread. No one protested. No one mourned. Kane himself presided, standing beside Grant on the execution platform. His voice rang out across the crowd. This man betrayed his brothers and sisters. He sought to hand this system back to those who would see us exterminated. He turned to Grant. Commander Mercer, sentence? Grant's eyes were ice. Death. Without hesitation, he drew his sidearm and fired. 1 shot. Cole crumpled to the stone floor, blood pooling beneath him. The crowd was silent. Then a roar erupted, not celebration, but grim approval, a warning to anyone else who might be tempted. No more illusions. This was war, and mercy was a dead man's luxury. But the execution was only the beginning. That night, Grant met again with Kane and the senior officers. Kane's face was like iron. There will be more traitors, more agents. The Council will keep sending them, until we break. He looked to Grant. You have my full authority. Root them out, however you see fit. Grant didn't flinch. It will be done. But even as he spoke, He knew the fight ahead would be harder than any open battle, because the enemy wasn't just out there in the stars. Now they were here, among them, and trust would be the first casualty. The assassination attempt came 3 nights after Cole's execution. It was simple, efficient, professional. Grant had returned to his quarters, a Spartan steel-walled chamber buried in Iron Fang's lower decks. He barely had time to unseal his armor when instinct screamed at him. The faintest click. Metal against metal. He moved fast, dropping low as a needle-thin dart sliced through the air where his throat had been. It embedded itself in the bulkhead with a hiss, leaving a tiny smear of neurotoxin on the alloy. Grant was already rolling, pistol out. A figure in sleek black infiltration gear lunged from the shadows, blade gleaming. Grant fired twice. 1 round glanced off the attacker's shoulder armor. The second struck center mass. The man staggered but didn't fall. Council biotech. Enhanced. They crashed together in brutal close-quarters combat. The assassin's blade nicked Grant's ribs. Searing pain. But Grant drove an elbow into the man's throat, then hammered his skull against the wall. Another shot. This time point blank. The assassin jerked, then slumped to the deck. Grant stood over the body, chest heaving. Council assassin. No doubt. How they'd gotten this deep inside Iron Fang was a chilling question for later. First, containment. Grant keyed his comm. Harris, secure Section Delta 5, now. An hour later, the command deck was sealed under full lockdown. Kane arrived in person, flanked by 2 trusted bodyguards. He looked down at the corpse, thin, wiry, modified with alien implants. Damn, Kane muttered. They've escalated. Grant, bandaged and still bleeding through his undersuit, stood stiff. They had inside help. No one gets past 2 levels of security otherwise. Kane's eyes burned. Another traitor? Grant nodded grimly. And we've barely started finding them. He glanced at Harris, who'd been running background traces. Harris spoke quietly. Whoever got him in wiped all access logs for the last 12 hours. We're flying blind, sir. Grant's voice was flat. Then we start over. Every officer, every crew member, every recruit gets vetted again. Personally. No exceptions. Kane gave a short nod. Make it happen. And Grant, stay alive. The unspoken truth hung in the air. Without Grant, the colony's surface defenses would collapse. Morale would crater. The Council knew exactly who to target. The next days were a hell of their own. Grant barely slept, overseeing constant sweeps, interrogations, surveillance audits. He trusted no one outside his core team now. Not even all the senior officers. Rumors spread fast. The assassination attempt wasn't public knowledge, but word always leaked in close quarters. Fear mounted. Paranoia crept through the ranks. Then came the second blow. A Council spy drone, cloaked, advanced, was found hovering near one of Bastion's main airfields. It had mapped every surface fortification in chilling detail. Worse, the drone's self-destruct failed, which meant someone had wanted it found. A message. We see you. We know your weakness. Later, in Kane's war room, the tension was thick as steel. Kane paced, restless. We're bleeding trust, fast. The Council's shadow war is doing more damage than their fleets ever did. Grant stood rigid. Then we bleed them back. He laid a datapad on the table, intel from captured transmissions. 3 Council-aligned mercenary groups are operating in nearby sectors. They're supplying infiltrators and sabotage tech. I want clearance to hit them. Hard. Kane studied him. Outside of 57? Grant nodded. Offensive strikes. We take the fight to them. Show the Council we can hit back. It was risky. Every ship sent on external raids was one less defending their fragile hold on A-57. but Kane's expression darkened. "Do it. Quietly. No survivors. No witnesses." Grant's reply was simple. "Understood." That night, as he prepared for the first covert op, Harris approached him with a different concern. "Sir," he said carefully, "there's talk among the officers." Grant raised an eyebrow. "What kind of talk?" Harris hesitated. "Fear. Some are saying Kane's grip is slipping, that he's too focused on political posturing, not survival." Grant's jaw tightened. He trusted Kane. The man had saved humanity's remnants from extinction, but fear made men reckless. "Names?" Grant asked. Harris shook his head. "Nothing solid, yet." Grant looked him dead in the eye. "Find them. If we fracture now, the Council won't need to send another fleet. We'll tear ourselves apart." Harris nodded. "Yes, sir." The first strike went perfectly. Grant led a small team, 4 ships, veteran crews, deep into neutral space. The mercenary outpost they hit was unprepared, arrogant in its immunity. No warnings, no declarations. They dropped in fast, overwhelmed defenses, and left nothing but molten wreckage behind. Messages were left in the wreckage, a blunt, brutal warning. "Human hands did this. Come again, and more will burn." But victories bred consequences. Upon returning, Grant found Kane in a rare private mood, seated alone in his dim command chamber, a glass of harsh whiskey in hand. "You did good work," Kane said without preamble, "but it's not enough." Grant stood stiff. "I know." Kane's eyes were bloodshot, weary. "The fractures are growing. I can feel it. Some of the outer captains want to break off. Find easier ground." Grant's voice was cold. "Deserters?" Kane gave a tired nod. "Maybe worse. Collaborators?" Grant said nothing for a long moment, then, "Give me the authority. I'll make an example of the first one who moves." Kane met his gaze. No hesitation. "Done." 3 nights later, Grant got his chance. A message intercepted. One of the outer fleet captains, Varric, had been making secret contact with Council agents, offering intelligence in exchange for safe passage out of A-57. Grant wasted no time. He led the strike team himself. They hit Varric's quarters like a hammer, overwhelming his guards, dragging the captain before a public tribunal. The charges were read, the evidence undeniable. There was no trial, no debate. Grant executed Varric himself, a single round through the skull, in front of the entire command assembly. A message, simple and brutal. There will be no fractures, no compromise. You fight or you die. Afterward, Kane summoned Grant alone. The Admiral's voice was low, grave. "You know what this means." Grant nodded. "We're past the point of no return." Kane's gaze was cold steel. "We always were." A long silence passed. Then Kane added, almost a whisper, "I hope you're ready, Grant." "Because this is about to get worse." Grant met his eyes without flinching. "Let them come." The blockade closed in with cold, mechanical precision. The Council didn't send another single fleet this time. They sent 3, layered, overlapping, coordinated by AIs that had mapped every potential hyperlane and subspace drift, leading to A-57. Within days, no supply ships could get through. No scouts, no smugglers. Even the pirate crews that had once dared to run the blockade vanished, wiped out or bought off. Bastion was sealed. In Iron Fang's war room, the map told a brutal story, a tightening noose of red fleet markers, rotating in precise formation. They weren't attacking yet. They didn't have to. They were starving the humans out. Grant stood over the map, arms crossed. Harris beside him, face pale. "Food reserves at 42%, Harris reported quietly. "Munitions, worse. Rail slugs down to 18%. Missile stockpiles, Maybe 3 more major engagements, then dry. Grant's jaw was iron. And morale? Harris hesitated. Holding. For now. But the outer settlements are restless. Civilians are starting to panic. Grant's eyes burned. Then we make sure they remember what happens to panic. The first major fracture hit a week into the blockade. A group of civilian leaders, former corporate types and mid-tier officers, demanded a private meeting with Kane. Grant was there when it happened. The lead spokesman, a slick bastard named Rhett Darrow, tried to veil it in diplomacy. Admiral, with respect, perhaps, it is time to consider negotiation. A conditional surrender. We've made our point. Grant cut him off, voice sharp as a blade. Number, we've made our choice. Darrow smirked, thin and oily. With respect, Commander Mercer, the civilians did not vote for this war. Many would accept council terms if it meant survival. The room went cold. Kane's voice was quiet but lethal. There will be no surrender. You are either with us or an enemy. Grant took one step toward Darrow. And enemies are dealt with. Darrow blanched. You can't just threaten elected leaders. Grant's pistol was out in a flash. He leveled it at Darrow's skull. Dead steady. No threats, he said flatly. Just facts. Darrow quailed. No one spoke in his defense. Kane gestured sharply. Guards dragged Darrow and his cronies out. Later that night, Kane's order was simple. Deportation to the outer mining camps, hard labor, no communications, no influence. Grant personally oversaw the transfers. No one resisted, not after seeing Varek executed. But the blockade's grip tightened. Civilian unrest spread like rot. Fights broke out in the lower Hab blocks. A food riot turned deadly. 2 Marines knifed, 3 civilians shot before order was restored. Grant's patrols tripled. Curfews were imposed. Violators were dealt with swiftly. Still, cracks formed. And then came the second assassination attempt. This time it wasn't an outsider. It was a human, a young Marine named Kellen Brandt, one of the new recruits. He'd been turned. Council psyops. Grant was sure of it. Too many whispers. Too many unknown variables. Brandt got within 20 meters of Kane during a surface inspection, weapon disguised as a service tool. He might have succeeded, if not for one of Grant's veterans spotting the twitch, the wrong angle. The boy went down hard. Shot in the leg, tackled, pinned. Under interrogation, he broke fast. He'd been approached 2 weeks earlier. Promised wealth, a new life, a way-off bastion. Grant listened to the confession in cold silence. When it was over, he looked at the guards. No trial? Airlock. The Marines saluted. Minutes later, Brandt was vented into the void, screaming, weeping, face twisted in regret. A message again? No more mercy, no more tolerance. But the damage was done. In Kane's private office, the mood was grim. The Council's not trying to win militarily, Grant said, pacing. They're trying to break us from within. Death by 1,000 cuts. Kane looked older than Grant had ever seen him. Gaunt, eyes sunken. But his voice still held iron. Then we cut back harder, Kane said. But even as he said it, they both knew. Time was running thin. Supplies were bleeding out. Tension was climbing. And the blockade held impenetrable. That night, Grant made a choice. He gathered his most trusted team. Harris, Blake, 2 veteran captains. We're going outside, Grant said. Breaking the blockade. Hit and run. Supplies, intel, psychological blow. We can't sit and starve. Harris looked wary. Sir, the fleet is stretched thin. If you're lost... Grant's gaze was cold. Then I'll be lost doing what we should have done from day one, fighting on our terms. Blake grinned, savage. About damn time. The next morning, without fanfare, a single stealth-fitted cruiser, Black Talon, slipped from Bastion's shadow. Grant was aboard, armed and armored, crew hand-picked. Objective: punch a gap through the blockade, raid a council depot in Sector Va-9, bring back whatever they could, weapons, food, even prisoners. High risk, near suicide. Grant thrived on it. They hit fast. 2 blockade frigates intercepted them, sleek alien ships with superior speed. But Grant's crew fought like devils. Rail slugs hammered through enemy shields. EMP bursts crippled targeting systems. 1 frigate spiraled into the void. The second limped away, engines aflame. Then Black Talon punched into hyperspace, running dark, silent. The raid was brutal, surgical. The Council Depot wasn't expecting a lone human cruiser. They weren't expecting Grant Mercer. The humans hit the station with precision, breaching outer docks, seizing cargo, slaughtering any resistance. Grant himself led the charge, blade and sidearm, moving through the station like death incarnate. When it was over, they had food, munitions, and prisoners. Grant left one final message on the station's main console. "We are still here. Humanity does not kneel." They returned, battered but alive, the first true victory since the blockade began. The supplies wouldn't break the siege, but they gave something more precious: hope, and a warning to the Council. The humans wouldn't die quietly, yet even victory carried shadows. In Iron Fang's war room, Kane studied the latest intel grimly. "The Council's bringing in new forces, heavier, siege platforms, AI-controlled dreadnoughts. They mean to crush us outright." Grant's voice was cold. "Then we bleed them dry first." But deep down, he knew, the next phase would be the bloodiest yet, and Bastion's defenders would face horrors no human had yet endured. The siege began at dawn, though on Bastion, dawn was just a pale red glow through storm-churned clouds. The warning klaxons howled through Iron Fang. On the main display, Harris's voice rang sharp. "Multiple Council dreadnoughts entering low orbit. Siege platforms deploying." Grant was already moving, armor sealed, rifle strapped across his chest. His expression was stone. They'd been preparing for this, but no amount of preparation could dull what was coming. "Get ground forces to full alert," he ordered. "Every bunker, every turret online. Fighters scramble, no reserves held back." Harris's eyes burned. "Yes, sir." The first orbital strikes hammered the surface. Council siege platforms, massive constructs bristling with plasma cannons and mass drivers, opened fire from high orbit. Their goal wasn't precision, it was annihilation. Sections of Bastion's upper city were vaporized in minutes. Defense platforms returned fire, but the enemy's sheer numbers overwhelmed them. In Iron Fang's war room, Grant watched the casualty reports scroll past. Entire districts gone. The Council wasn't bothering with propaganda now. They wanted Bastion erased. And somewhere amid the chaos, Kane was missing. Grant found out hours into the siege. A comm officer, pale, shaking, brought the news. "Sir, Admiral Kane's command transport was hit during inspection transit. No signal, no recovery possible." The words hit harder than any orbital strike. For a long moment, Grant said nothing. His jaw clenched, his fists tightened. Finally, his voice was cold steel. He knew the risks. And deeper down, a colder truth settled in his gut. Kane was gone. That left one man in effective command of Bastion's entire defense. Him. He took the command seat in Iron Fang's war room without ceremony. The officers were already looking to him, fear in their eyes, but also grim trust. Grant's voice cut through the tension. "Admiral Kane is gone. That changes nothing." He rose, gaze sweeping the room. "We fight. We hold this ground. You know what's coming? Orbital landers, shock troops, drones. The Council wants this world buried." He slammed a fist on the table. "Let's give them hell first." The ground assault began within the hour. Council landers, sleek black craft with grav tanks and infantry pods, pierced the atmosphere, trailing flame. Surface defenses opened fire. Railguns, missile batteries, plasma turrets. Many landers were shredded mid-air. Others punched through, disgorging troops into the ruins of Bastion's lower sectors. Grant led from the front. No time for war rooms now. He moved bunker to bunker, rallying Marines, directing fire, plugging gaps in the lines. The fighting was brutal. Council shock troops were enhanced, armored, and fearless. Their drones moved in coordinated swarms, forcing human forces to fight hand-to-hand when ammo ran dry. Grant fought like a man possessed, blade flashing, rifle bucking in his hands. Blake was with him, bleeding but grinning through the smoke. Harris coordinated air support from a mobile command vehicle, voice hoarse from hours of non-stop orders. By the third day, Bastion was a charnel house. Entire sectors were reduced to rubble. The air was thick with smoke and ash. Every building became a fortress, every street a killing field. Still, the humans held. Grant's voice became the spine of the defense, a constant presence on comms. "Sector 5, hold that flank, no retreat." "Reinforce Sector 8, Council armor spotted. Any man who runs, I'll shoot him myself." And they believed him. But even the fiercest will couldn't defy exhaustion. By the fifth day, human forces were down to 30%. Ammo was critical. Medical supplies were gone. Marines fought with scavenged weapons, blades, fists, and still, the Council pressed in. Grant's armor was scorched, his face streaked with blood and sweat. His eyes were hollow but unbroken. In a battered bunker near the central fusion plant, he gathered the last of the officers. "We can't hold every sector," Harris admitted grimly. "We're stretched past breaking." Grant's voice was cold. "Then we don't." He pointed to the map. "We fall back to the core sectors. Every building fortified, every approach mined. If they want the plant, they'll drown in blood to take it." Blake nodded fiercely. "A last stand." Grant looked them all in the eye. "Not last," he said Hort. "Final." The fallback was chaos. Running gun battles, burning streets, civilians evacuated under fire. But Grant's plan worked. The humans compressed their lines, forcing the Council into brutal close quarters fighting where orbital support was useless. Bastion's core became a steel trap. Tunnels, kill zones, ambush points. And Grant was everywhere, leading charges, holding barricades, dragging wounded to safety. On the seventh day, the Council broke through to the outer ring of the fusion plant. Grant led the counterattack personally. Grenades blasted corridors clear. Blades flashed in the smoke. Blood soaked the steel floors. Blake went down in the melee, chest hit by a plasma bolt. Grant dragged him back behind cover. "Don't die on me, old bastard," Grant growled. Blake coughed blood, grinning weakly. "Wouldn't dream of it, sir." That night, as the lines held by sheer will alone, Harris brought grim news. "Council dreadnoughts are repositioning," he reported. "They're bringing in planet cracker cannons. If they can't take us, they'll glass the site." Grant's jaw tightened. "Then we bleed them faster." He looked around at the weary officers. "If this is it, we go out fighting." The final assault came at dawn, 1 week to the hour from the blockade's start. Council troops stormed the core in massed waves, a wall of flesh and metal. Grant was on the line, blade and rifle in hand. No comms now, just raw survival. The fighting was savage beyond words. Every inch of ground was bought in blood. Grant killed until his rifle jammed, then fought with blade and fist. Around him, Marines held or died. No one ran. And then, the impossible happened. A burst transmission, cutting through the jamming. Harris caught it first, eyes wide. "Sir, Long-range fleet contact, unknown signature. Human Grant staggered to the command post. What kind of fleet? He demanded. Harris's voice shook. Big, organized. They're broadcasting human codes, but not ours. Reinforcements. Across the burning skies, new human ships dropped from hyperspace, sleek, powerful, flying under a new banner. Word spread like wildfire. Independent human colonies had answered the call. They weren't council pawns. They were coming to fight. The blockade shattered under the surprise assault. Council ships broke formation. Some fled. Others were hunted down. On the ground, council forces began to falter. Without orbital support, their push stalled. Human counterattacks surged forward. Grant led the charge, face bloodied, voice raw, driving the enemy back step by brutal step. By nightfall, the council was in full retreat. Bastion stood, battered, broken, but alive. In the aftermath, Grant stood in the ruins of Iron Fang's war room. The new fleet commander, a grizzled veteran from the outer colonies, approached. "You held," he said simply. Grant's voice was ragged. "Not alone." He looked around, at the battered survivors, the blood-stained halls. "This is just the beginning," he said. "They'll be back, harder, stronger." The new commander nodded. "Then we'll be ready." And as the battered human forces regrouped, a single message was sent across the stars. Bastion stands. Humanity fights. The war is far from over.